All right, we are back. And here is my follow-up video of having listened to the Supreme, I think it's the Maine Supreme Court, when they heard the Liberty Council's what they had to say and what Miss King had to say. My question, okay, so I'm gonna have to highlight this a little bit so that I can read it properly. I'm having some eye issues later in my life here. So I wanted to say first, the father is using the individuality clause. This is actually something that my husband caught loving. The father is using the individuality clause over extending his parental rights and federal authority, question mark, because the parents have the right individually to the minor's education religiously. My question is, why is Justice Connors representing the Supreme Court of Maine? Why is she asking what the test is allocating as to one parent having total control over the child's religious upbringing? My question was, shouldn't the judicial system have a test? Because I don't know Maine law. I'm not a lawyer, so that was my question as a public person that I would be interested in knowing. Maybe they can clarify that. Doesn't the judicial system have a test or some standard for that? Because Staver from Liberty Council says that he went into a little bit about the compelling interest test. So maybe if you can tell Liberty Council and Maine, the court system, maybe you could help us who are in different states and or don't know the law as much as yourselves to kind of break that down and help us understand some of what's going on here. Let's see. I made the note that said the court has a responsibility to consider what is not seen, not just what is seen. And I think that they do touch on that a little bit with the emotional concern. So my question then in regards to that is, why is only a sociologist, I believe the word is, why is only a sociologist brought in? If this, especially to the Supreme Court, because if Ava has anxiety, why isn't medical experts, plural, and psychologists, plural, brought in? Not just from Michael Bradeen's side. Because there's a lot going on here. And like I said, if Michael Bradeen fits the bill of the overextending, controlling father like mine was, and mine played all the handbook, all the playbook of a narcissist, and I'm talking about, even though he's not medically diagnosed, very much just all the playbook, the behaviors were there. So, my observation from having had the experience in the life that I have, I went, my note said, I said, the court, in my view, is not considering what the father observed, because the word saw was used. Like, he saw his daughter having a panic attack. Michael saw that she had anxiety or a panic attack or whatever. That was that happening in his home? Was it happening at the mother's home or his home? Because from my experience and my past, my concern is that the father, and maybe the sister, I don't know, but particularly the father, the parent, if the child is at your house and you see your child having a panic attack, why didn't you walk that through? Why didn't you know what to do or take steps to say, hey, what should I be doing? I've had panic attacks before. I had a few of them. One particular semester of college, 2 professors that had a very big ego, very, very big ego, and I was very stressed out. And I called the school. They had a hotline to help, and they just talked me through it. And we were good. I don't have a lot of panic attacks. It just happen. It happens to even the best of us in situations and with people who are just nearly impossible or unreasonable. There are seasons in life where we might go through panic attacks. So I'm like, okay, so he saw it. What responsibility falls on the father? Because as I was talking with my husband again today on this, not only the issue of that one case, it's my understanding that was an isolated case, but also if your child, Ava, has been going to Calvary, has been going to a church for years, and you were concerned about it, why aren't you speaking about before? If it really truly was a concern, why wouldn't you be speaking up sooner? Why now? Pointed question, but why now? And if I have to talk a little loud because of the traffic in the background, so just explaining, it's hard to speak, that my throat is kind of bad, so I'm not meaning to come across as like a nutty person or whatever. I'm just trying to talk loud because there's traffic in the background. But I am upset about that, because it's like, okay, if you are, if that truly is a concern, why didn't you bring it up before? Has that been brought up in court? That's my question. And so I said, okay, he observed. What did this father do about the panic attacks or her anxiety? As a survivor of narcissistic abuse, I'm going to say that it's likely that if the father, if he is a narcissist, he is or may be stoking the fire of Ava's anxiety. He may be doing something to provoke her to be more anxious and leave notes around the house, because she is a very kind individual, a daughter who loves her father and wants the best. So he may be using that as a manipulative tactic that she may, as a young adult, maybe to some extent maybe realize, but she doesn't. Nobody at 12 years old can comprehend what life will bring you. I'm almost 42. So I'm just trying to be a voice and say, I know what it is like exactly to have your father say no and go against the church. Only Michael took it to courts. You did this, Michael. You are not only attacking Emily and the mother and the people you have a personal beef with. You have now unleashed the people of God upon you. You have waged war. You have made a call to war in the legality sense. You want to take the whole globe on? Do you realize that there are people in China who are forbidden from reading the Bible, and yet they do. And they hold services in silence. They sing in silence, or maybe they did in the older times. But there are persecuted Christians throughout the world. And you cannot, the soul is not something that you have jurisdiction over. You can play the courts. But Ava's soul, that's God's. That's not yours. And that may be a hard truth for any parent to taste. But it's something that we all have to realize. And especially it disturbed me that the way, at least the language that I have heard, it sounds to me very much like Ava is being treated as if she's a 4-year-old rather than a 12-year-old. Yes, she is still a minor. She is still a minor. But that does not mean that she does not have a good brain on her shoulders. I know what it is to have a father say, constantly demean you and say that you're brainwashed by, in this case, Calvary Chapel, or in my case, the evangelical Presbyterians. Oh, you're brainwashed, you're brainwashed. What does that send into a child's mind? What does that send into a minor's mind from a father specifically who should build a child, son or daughter, up? It doesn't show any confidence that you will ever improve, that you're capable of improving. You're just stupid. That's the parental message being sent out. You're stupid. You can't think for yourself. I have to think for you. Now, yes, there are decisions that parents have to make that are completely right. No, you can't have a tattoo. You can't do this. You can't do that because I see the consequences ahead. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about sending the message into a child's mind. You're so concerned. If you truly are concerned about psychological detriment to Ava, what message does that send to her? To tell her that she's brainwashed. Quite a few times now, I'm sure, over this whole fiasco. It does not give a person, a young person, confidence in themselves to grow up and mature. It keeps them on you. It does not help them develop psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, or otherwise. Getting back to my notes. As a survivor of narcissistic abuse, I am going to say that it is likely that the father is a narcissist. He is fueling Ava's anxiety and purposefully covert behaviors behind closed doors and causing stress in the ways, in ways she may have an inkling as a young adult, but not more fully comprehend, as I said before. My question here, present, and this goes for both sides, present to us, me included, since you've now made it public and an American issue, a national issue, present a concise timeline, not just any requests at any church, etc. Have the numbers. How many times did Emily come to Michael? Because that's going to show, is this dad a reasonable dad or not? Is he a reasonable person or not? Show the numbers. How many times did Emily come to him and say, okay, how about this church? How about that church? Doesn't seem like the guy is very reasonable, quite frankly. And that's your own boo-boo. That's your own boo-boo in presenting. Here's another thing. It is unclear at the moment, to me, and possibly to others, where does Ava's anxiety stem from? Now, Michael is wanting to present it as, oh, it's the church. The church, that's where she gets anxiety. I question that. Because if you looked up, and I did a quick Google search, I go, okay, I'm interested. What is the top rated or reason why minors would be anxious? And I'm sorry, coughing. So it is interesting that comes from stuff that is in the home, stuff that has to do with family. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the basic gist. So that's interesting, huh? Poor decisions. Let's see, my notes here. Let's see. Whoops. Let me go back to. Let's see here. I wanted to cover this issue too. The issue of Emily being a fit parent except for the whole church issue. That's a weird one. That you gotta, well, you don't have to admit, but that sounds weird to me. To be a fit parent except for this one thing. Don't know how to take that. But it sounds weird to me. My question in regards to Emily's decision making. Okay, here's something to consider, because she's been painted as poor decisions because of church. Now, I would push back on that and say, was it bad decisions? Or was it uneducated decisions? Is this a mom, because this is a possibility, is this a mom who is trying to learn the whole Christianity? She's come to this later in life. She's still learning. I'm still learning in life. I'm not an expert in everything. She's learning about this. So, is it an uneducated decision? Is it a less educated decision? Or is it a bad decision? Just something to think about. And going on in my notes, I say, there is a distinction between a sermon and an announcement. I would have to go back and see and revisit the footage. Ms. King or Mrs. King, whichever she goes by, when the Bradeen's counsel, his attorney, when she got up, she may have misspoken. There is a very big difference, because when she presented to the excuse me, when she presented the information to the Supreme Maine Court, she used the word sermon, I believe. Like I said, I would have to go back and check, but there's a big and important difference there. Because I have seen people who don't know church and the structure of how things go there, typically at a Sunday service and what have you, they're misunderstanding a lot of, and they're thinking maybe that this is a sermon, that the pastor got up and spoke about Michael and what was going on in front of his flock. That was more of an announcement. That there's a just to clarify, excuse me, there's an announcement section. This was not a sermon on Michael Bradeen. Just want to clarify that. I think that should be cleared up, because there's a lot of confusion that I see just in the starting of researching this whole thing. I think that would help a lot, and it would help the court a lot too. I think. That's just me. I'm just saying, like, this was a segment. This was an announcement segment. This was not a sermon. Okay, because there is a big difference. If the guy went on for 30 minutes to an hour about Michael Bradeen, that would be a sermon. But there is an announcement section, typically speaking, at most churches where they say, oh, this is that event, or, you know, that they go into some announcements before going into the sermon. So I think that should be cleared up. If she did, like I said, I would have to go back, but that's what's going on. I do think that it was inappropriate of the pastor not to rake him over the coals or something. My husband and I talked about it. We both agree that it was kind of inappropriate for that. But I don't think that it is fair that people are spinning Emily as like the worst mom ever. I think that it kind of depends. My husband and I were kind of talking about this. It sort of a little bit depends upon how mature is Ava. It depends on there's a certain amount of dependence upon how mature this child is, and that comes back to I'm really disturbed that Ava is being treated as if she's 4 years old rather than 12. She's a minor, yes, but she may very well have a good head on her shoulders. So it depends. I do think that it was inappropriate. I think this could have been handled in-house. But is that the most egregious thing here? I don't think so. Let's see here. So, because I will say, my mother, when my dad attacked the church, she came to me and she showed me the email that he had sent the church because she knew that I would be affected, that my friendships would be affected, that she didn't want me to be in the dark. So I understand where Emily is coming from. Not excusing the thing that transpired, but I understand her mindset, is what I'm saying. I wanted to say, in my notes, I said, rights versus orders is an issue. As I had said, what other experts were called in? Why only a social expert or expert in sociology? Since you are so concerned about the psychological detriment, Michael, why aren't psychological experts and secular and Christian experts called in? Okay? I think this may be forthcoming. The issue of hostility. I think that's an interesting and good word that Liberty Counsel used. I will say that narcissists in the family, in my own family, I have personal experience with this, they will come across as charming. And I have seen this happen in the case of Micah and JP Miller in, I think it was South Carolina. Yes, South Carolina, a year or two ago here now. Where, I heard clips of him in court before. I mean, he comes across very charming, like very just nonchalant, like, oh, I'm not a threat, So what you are seeing, what the court may be seeing is somebody's best presentation of themselves, best foot forward, right? But what they don't see is what may be going on behind. If he is, okay, it's just very suspicious to me that somebody so controlling as Michael Bradeen here is going to the courts to not only, it didn't stop at one thing. It's an all-encompassing, you can't read the Bible on your own, you can't have a conscience to read the Bible, like the conscience is being infringed. You can't read a Bible on your own, you can't interact with any friends from church, you can't do this, and this. It's a long laundry list. That is very suspicious to me. Very suspicious. Maybe you're not a narcissist, but that is suspicious to me. Let's see. Okay. They're charming. Okay, they will show the best of themselves, a fake face, blah, 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 blah. The next note I have is strict scrutiny analysis. Excuse me. I'm not sure why I wrote that, but I included that in there. It was of interest to me. My next thought was, how do you prohibit all third parties to not disparage the parent? This seems a gross overreach. This sounds a gross overreach. How do you determine, are you trying to like keep tabs on this girl 24/7 through cameras? Like, how do you determine what is, I think that may have been what Justice Connors, I believe it was, like, she kind of had that, struck me as some of that mindset, like, you know, what is the like, this issue is being brought up of, like, what is the standard? Because I'm just like, how do you determine, because the world is not according to you, Michael Bradeen, much as you might not like to hear about it. We all share this world. We all share this world. The people who are in the jury, the people who are in the judges, all, you know, all the public here, we all share this world. So my question is to the courts and stuff in Maine, and, you know, how do you determine this really odd prohibition of any third party? That seems very subjective to me, like how you might perceive somebody saying something. Now I can see how the judge would rule that excuse me. I can see how the judge would rule that the pastor speaking publicly like that, I could see how that would be perceived as, you know, disparaging. Okay, but you can't control, like, you can't be on top of everybody. People will comment. I will comment. The public will comment. Are you going to sue us all for being disparaging? Very weird. Very odd. So, let's see. Oh, I was going to say, people have been painted a picture of this pastor. He's delivering as if he's delivering the famous sermon, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." Friendly atheist, who's not so friendly in my opinion, very much painted this pastor as like forceful and evil. You know, he didn't use the word evil, but, you know, the picture is being painted of this pastor as just being the most unreasonable person. And the clip, when I listened to it, the guy's talking calmly. He's not, what the heck? Just, but you've got people out here in the public sphere who might not check that, and who might be thinking, oh gosh, this pastor is an awful evil person. He's being so forceful, and he's like, yeah, he's a cult leader. Da, 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 da. Come on. The pastor talks calmly, and there is a lacing of hurt, as anyone would be, if Michael is being paid to dig into people. Hurt for him, hurt for his flock, people he knows. Like, that is reasonable to be hurt. Does he deserve a misrepresentation as a punishment from somebody who's controlling and possibly narcissistic? No. Let's see. So in my notes, oh yeah, the word diatribe was used too, that pertaining to that. It was just kind of ridiculous. I'm sorry. Bugs here in nature. Let's see. The enemy used in that little clip of the pastor, I will say that's stretching it a bit, because that was used to think and to paint the picture like as if the pastor was saying the father was the enemy. If you have been to church recently, or at all really, it is well understood in the church realm that the enemy does not mean people. Okay, let's clear that up. Okay, let's clear that up. The enemy is not people. The enemy is Satan. Okay? So, it's well understood in the church, regardless of denomination. Regardless. That is well understood. So, whoever is coming at this with, whether it's Miss King or whatever, like, please. It is well understood in the church realm, if you will. The enemy is not people. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to point out too that this was the second, the reason that was reinforced in my mind that Michael might very well be a narcissist is because the whole the issue of Emily feeling as if she had to hide the trip to the state capitol. What was it? I wrote it down here. Let me just tell you, if you have been married to, or in a relationship with a narcissist, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. If you live with a narcissist, yes, there is no privacy or boundaries, no healthy boundaries. So you are basically forced with your back to the wall to omit or hide things, or just stay silent. Because they're such megalomaniacs and unreasonable. So that was another thing that I noted in this whole, like, this overextension, this reach of, thou shalt not read the Bible, thou shalt not interact with your friends, thou shalt not long laundry list. And yeah, the mom hid from me. Emily hid from me this, then, I'm thinking to myself, this is from my angle of having been married to a narcissist, my first marriage, having had my dad displayed all, these two men in my life, and honestly my sister as well, following my father's footsteps, sadly. These behaviors, these narcissistic behaviors, yes, people feel like they need to hide things because these people will not let go. They won't let a thing go. Okay? So I feel for Emily. That's just where my stance is. Let's see. I was going to say, I found it interesting in looking up this issue, coming back to the panic attack. I Googled this, and it says, according to research, the number one cause of panic attacks is a combination of genetic and environmental factors that contribute to an individual's susceptibility to anxiety. So it is interesting to me that Michael's side is trying so hard to focus on the environmental stuff regarding, the church environment and stuff. What about genetics? What about the home environment? That's my question. Not just the home of Emily, but the home of Michael Bradeen. That's where my thought process is. And so, so Michael, I've got to say, you as a dad, you should lead, and you should lead healthily. And you should know that me, who was once 12 years old, 13 years old, a long, long time ago now, you should know that a Christian environment, a church environment, is what helped me. Being cut off from that almost caused me to end my life. And I want you to hear this statistic, because this is very serious. This does have to do with life and death, and it concerned me very much so that if she has anxiety, her risk for either self-harm or worse. Now, I am praying that she doesn't do anything of this sort, but you and your legal cronies and the courts, please, the courts, please pay attention to this. The feeling of those who are in church, the feeling of loneliness dropped 30%. This is from Metcalf Ministries. There's statistics out there. So if you are a loving father, if you are a genuinely concerned father, do your own research on this, because this is very serious. Sending a child, a minor, into isolation, which is different than independence. I will repeat, independence and isolation are two different things. You are cutting her off from all her friends that she knows. That can cause somebody to go into desperate measures, especially a young child who doesn't know enough about life, who may decide to do something that they don't know the ramifications of. Feeling of loneliness dropped 30%. Anger issues decreased 32%. Bitterness in relationships dropped by 40%. Sex outside of marriage dropped 68%. The people who keep in church, the people who keep in a life of faith, and there is a reason the Bible says that the faith compares it to a shield. And I observed this in my study in college. There is a psychological connection between faith and the mind. And I think you know that, because then you're trying to paint the church, not just Calvary Chapel, but church overall, as some type of cult. I get that you may wholeheartedly believe that, but I urge you to consider the opposite camp. Consider what is opposed to your worldview at the current. Because these behaviors, people who are not in church, especially minors, they are going to find something unhealthy to latch onto. They have to latch onto something. And sending some sweet, poor young woman into isolation, that can cause anybody, even the best in faith, into a desperate measures. And that is wrong, because you are an adult. That is wrong because you're an adult and you're a father. Viewing pornography decreased 61%. All these feeling spiritually stagnant decreased 60%. All these are just a few percentages of negative behaviors, decreased by over 50% in the 60s and possibly even 70s for some. So this is something to seriously consider. If you are truly concerned about the psychological detriment of Ava. So, let's see. We'll say one more thing. One more statistic. Children who read the Bible at least 4 days a week have 54% lower odds of engaging in behavioral risk. And that comes from, I think it's called Baptist and Reflector.org. There's tons more. I have posted some, and I hope it's helpful to the body of Christ in equipping the saints to know when people like Michael, regardless of what their issue is, when people come against you, know these things. Know that Time has done Time Magazine, Newsweek, things that are in the secular realm, not just the Christian realm, have covered this topic of the mind and the soul. And there is scientific proof that people in church, people who live a life of faith, do better and have, like I posted with the Bible show, have a longer life expectancy well into their old age. So I wanted to share a little bit about this, and I'm at 41 minutes now, but I think it is very worth thank you. I think it's very worth the topic because, like I said, my story is almost identical to Ava's. My dad went against the church. He misused the scripture against them. He prevented me from being baptized, but only when I was a teenager. I will say, I found a way. I strayed in college. But my second year of college, I got back on track. The Lord did not abandon me. God has plans for this young woman. And she's going to have a heck of a fight with this. But she has given her life to the Lord, and I think it is very beautiful that she wants to make a proclamation of that. And by stopping a proclamation, you are not stopping the relationship, Michael. She is Jesus's. She is bought with the blood of the Lamb. It is not your business to step into that relationship. You may not want to hear that, but he has her. She is his, first and foremost, and I think that is beautiful, that she wanted to share her joy with her father. And I think it is a crying shame that you do not find that joy, that you do not rejoice that your daughter has found something to be joyful and healthy about. So my own story, just a short thing. Second year of college, I got baptized. I was immersed. There was no little sprinkling. There was no doctrinal, theological differences with my dad that he tried to spin when I was 12, 13. I got immersed. The whole deal, baby. I was down in the ocean. Immersed. God began a work in my life. And he has not abandoned me since. I've been homeless. And you know what? It was only the times when I walked away from the Lord and walked away from scripture, because I did. Like I said, I got married to my first husband, was bordered on physical abuse. It was going toward that direction. Unfortunately. But it was the times when I walked, in life, when I got tired of reading the Bible or walked away from it or, put some distance. That's when things went wrong. That's when things really didn't work out so great. But like I said, I've been homeless. I was homeless a few years ago. And it got me through to know in my soul and to keep saying, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. God knows the plans that he has for you, Ava. He does. And I will be praying for you, sweetie. I know that it's hard. I know that it's heartbreaking, especially with family. But you can make it. Devil didn't kill me. He didn't kill me. I'm still kicking. And when it's my time to go, it's my time to go. But God is in control of that. and He'll call me home when it's my time. You can be strong. He will probably forge you in ways that you don't know about yet. You are prayed for by me and many, many others. Have a blessed day.